Hey folks, I'm Dennis. Today I'm going to show you how to change the rear brakes on a 2007 to 2011 Toyota Camry. The car I'm working on today is a 2009, but it's very similar to all of those year models within that range. First thing you need to do is to jack the car up, put a jack stand under it so it doesn't fall, and take the rear tire off. So once you got that done, let's get started. There are various brands of brake pads that you can buy out there. I prefer Bendix brand just because they've been around for a long time and they're reputable, and I know what kind of product I'm going to get. Okay, what you're going to need for this job is you're going to need a 14 millimeter wrench. You may need a 17 millimeter wrench, usually not, but it's good to have one just in case. I'll explain that in a minute. You're going to need a pair of channel locks or a small C-clamp, a 6-inch C-clamp, 4-inch will work. And that's really it. And the way these work is you've got your rotor here. I'm not going to get into rotors today because my rotors are fine, they don't need any work. That might be a future video, but as long as you don't have any grooving, as long as this is a smooth surface, 9 times out of 10 you're going to be alright. Now if you've had multiple brake jobs and these have been turned more than a couple of times, they're probably going to be too thin and they might need to be replaced, but as long as you've got a nice smooth surface and you haven't had multiple brake jobs, it should be fine. You've got caliper retainer bolts here and here, and then you've got a slide pin here and here. The bolts, these bolts hold on the caliper, which is this, to the caliper bracket, which is this. The bolts thread into the slide pins. These slide pins move in and out of the caliper bracket. So sometimes when you loosen these or tighten them, this slide pin will also turn. That's where you may need a 17 millimeter wrench. If not, you just need a 14 here, and usually you can get by with not having to have one, but we'll see. So you're going to loosen that bolt up, that retainer bolt. Be careful here of your bleeder valve. You don't want to bend it or break it off, then you have a mess. Get on the bottom one, and same thing. The back calipers, you have to take both bolts out. On the front you can actually just rotate them up. They don't give you enough hose on the backs to be able to rotate the caliper, so you may as well take both out. And that's the retainer bolt, just kind of a basic bolt, nothing fancy. Slide the caliper off, and then some people will take a piece of wire twine and put it here and tie it up to the coil spring or something like that. If you just don't put your hose in a kink, but they're small and light, if you can generally just balance them right up here on top of the rotor, no sweat. Notice I don't have the hose in a bind, I've just looped it back around instead of down. Alright, so you've got your brake pads here and here, the inner and the outer. So it just flips out. There's a shim on the back, which is an anti-squeal shim, and then you got a little squealer clip right there. It's a wear indicator to let you know once the pads get worn down to a certain point, that clip rubs on the rotor, makes a horrible sound, lets you know that your brakes are worn out. Sometimes the new brakes will come with squealer clips on them, and sometimes they won't. This particular one doesn't. Now the new pads, the inboard and the outboard are the same, so it doesn't matter which side you put it on. You just got to make sure you get it in there the right way. Some pads will also come with new abutment clips. These clips in here, and they basically just snap in. The set that I bought does not. I kind of wish they had it, but I think I bought the wrong set. You can either order them with or without. So if you get with, these clips just basically snap onto the caliper bracket. If you don't get new ones, just make sure that they're not rusted up and they're not bound up. Make sure they're fairly clean. Don't put any lubricant on here though, because it'll pull it onto your rotor. So you want your squealer clip on the back brakes to be on the bottom, because then the forward motion of the rotor, since we drive forward more than backward, will not tend to pull the clip off. So you take the clip off the old one. Just, you got to kind of work it off, but it'll snap right off. Then you take the new pad. It's going to go on the rotor that way, so the clip's going to go on the bottom because the wheel's going, this is the right side, so the wheel's going that way. And then you can see how that clip is shaped. This little part here goes on the pad, and then the end here goes toward the rotor, so it's going to go on just like that, and you just snap that on there. That's a little loose, so I'm going to take a pair of pliers and I'm going to tighten that up a touch. There we go. So now it's on there like that. And then all you do is slide that in. Make sure that you get inside this abutment clip, top and bottom. It's easier to get the inner part first and then slip in the outer, I think. Same thing with the inner, the inboard, just take it, pop that squealer clip off. If it won't come off, you can take a pair of pliers if it's real tight, but normally you can pop them right off. Same thing, it's going to go on the bottom like so. That's also a little loose, so I'm going to tighten it up. One of the reasons I prefer to buy the pads with the hardware kit is you get all this new, the abutment clips and the little squealer clips, but I just messed up. Now make sure that they're in there and they can go right up against the rotor. As long as they're right up against the rotor, you're fine. Make sure they're inside of these clips. Check your guide pins to make sure that they're lubricated, that they're sliding. Your slide pins, as long as they'll move, they're okay. If they're not, if they're bound up, if you've got like an older car or that's been a lot of salt water, something like that, where these are bound up, then you want to get the brakes will come with some grease, and you want to pull that boot back and grease those slide pins so that they're free to move. Now when your brake pads wear out, they get thinner, and so this caliper piston comes out further this way because it's pinching onto the rotor and the pads. So in order to get this back on the new pads, because they're thicker, you've got to compress this a little bit. Completely compressed would be where this metal ring is flush with this rubber boot that goes around here. The safest way to do it is take one of your old pads, stick it in there. You can either use a C-clamp. They make a tool that goes in here and spans across these two ears with a big thumb screw on it, or you can just take a pair of channel locks. But basically what you're going to do is hook onto the back end of this caliper, and you're not trying to kill it. You just want to compress this, and you want to kind of take it easy so that you don't put too much back pressure on the seals in the master cylinder and that kind of thing. And then you're just going to kind of gently squeeze that. You can see that going back in. So now it's flush, and that's fine. Take the caliper and slide it back into the bracket, being careful not to knock the shoes off. You may have to compress these slide pins to get the caliper on there. Do that. Take your two bolts, make sure that's lined up well, and then get them started. Top and bottom. The torque spec on these caliper retaining bolts is 25 foot-pounds. I'll be honest, I don't hardly ever torque them. I snug them up and call it good, but if you are real particular about torque specs, then you can torque it. And you see how that moves. That's because I've compressed the piston. You're good to go. And all you got to do is put the wheel back on. Part of the process of new brakes is most of them come pre-scorched now, so it's not a real big issue, but just to burn them in, bed them, take your car out, get it up to about 40, do a fairly hard brake to stop, do that about 4 or 5 times, and then you should be good to go. Try your best to take it easy for about the first 100 miles on the brakes, and after that you don't have to worry about it. They're fine. Like I say, most of these pads anymore are pre-scorched, so you really don't have to worry too much about that, but that's just a safer thing to do to make sure that they're bedded properly. Alright, so that's it. Now you know how to do the rear brakes on an 07 to 11 Toyota Camry. Thanks for watching my video. I appreciate you checking it out. Please check out the other Camry videos on my channel, and I hope you subscribe, and hope to see you back soon.